twisted over you. You got me twisted over you. I know I got what you need. I got what you need right here, baby. So what you wanna do? Baby, baby, I know. Baby, I feel it so. You don't feel like I do. Tell me what can I do? But I gotta be strong. Cause my heart stays where your love is at. You got me twisted, oh yeah. You know you're my lover. You know you want my loving, baby. Yeah. You got me twisted over for you. I know I got what you need. Whatever we got here, baby. So what you wanna do? So good, baby. Yeah. You got me twisted over for you. I know I got what you need, baby. So what you wanna
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 5 of the SUR Files here. It's usually the nefarious one, the one and only Joshie Lopez. Make sure to do us a favor if you check us out on our YouTube channel at the SUR Files. Make sure to hit that like button and smash the subscribe button. Don't forget, the episodes of the new SUR Files podcast drops each and every single Friday, anywhere you get your podcast from. But our home for the SUR Files is Odyssey, so shout out to the great people at Odyssey and the Odyssey Creator Lab for having us on their platform, and we appreciate the opportunity. So type in the SUR Files in the Google search engine, and it'll be right there for you. It's free of charge. You can check out an audio. If you want to check out other versions of the podcast, check it out on our YouTube channel. And the best way to support the SUR Files is to check out our TikTok page at SUR Files, SUR Files. It's the ultimate compilation reference, hence the name of this podcast, Files, keyword emphasis on files. We share a lot of great old scenes, interview bites, everything that's ever been posted or published regarding Vanderpump Rules or The Valley is fair game, or cast members of said shows is fair game. And this is a positive project, but it's also showcasing the history of the show. There's going to be good and bad. And I appreciate the support, but the best way, especially our growing community, is on TikTok. So shout out to everybody that's already following us on there, and we're close to 4,000 followers, by the way, on TikTok. But on YouTube, I'd like to expand the community outreach as well. Like I said, best way to help us out on YouTube is smash that subscribe button if you're a fan of Bravo, reality TV, Vanderpump Rules, or The Valley. I thank you all for giving this a chance. This is a podcast by a straight male man from Chicago, Illinois, who now resides in Winter Park, Florida. And I'm stepping into a new project. For those who don't know me, and this is your first time listening to the podcast, I spent the last 12 to 13 years covering professional wrestling. And speaking of wrestling, this week is WrestleMania, so things have been very busy on my end. So I apologize in advance for not publishing an episode for last week. So with that being said, there's a lot to discuss this week. Obviously, we got episode 3 for season 3 of The Valley that just dropped yesterday as I'm recording this on Thursday night. These episodes drop Friday mornings, anywhere you get your podcast from, like I said. And we're going to talk about it in the episodes called the Santa Clarita Trail. I might call this episode the Santa Boob Trail, just given everything that we saw in the episode this week. But we're going to keep that towards the end of this week's podcast. I wanted to kick off the way we ended the last podcast and continue on reading a little bit from Scheana Shay's book, My Good Side, the memoir. I have the book here. I read the first chapter regarding Sandoval. Now, I'm not going to be reading Scheana's entire book. I don't want to disrespect her in any way, anything like that. So go get her book, whether it's audiobook or paperback copy like I have. I don't want to take that away from her, but I thought it was very important, especially since we have on our YouTube page, by the way, the best way, that's why I keep mentioning it. I have an audiobook that I wrote called Sandoval, and it's a project that I worked on. It's my first writing project on reality TV and Vanderpump Rules, and I have a personal tie to the scandal itself and why it's led me to where I'm speaking to you right now. So check it out on our YouTube channel. It's hashtag Sandoval by Joshie Lopez, and I think you guys will enjoy it. So I wanted to read this chapter. We read the first half of this story from Scheana's perspective on the last episode, but tonight we're going to be reading chapter 15, which is called Notes on a Sandoval. So this is some good point of reference stuff for myself, especially since I wrote the project and I took about 2.5 months writing it down. But it's good to now getting into the full real perspective from the people that were affected by it. And obviously we know outside of Ariana, obviously I think Scheana is probably the most affected out of this whole situation for everybody. So let's hear it. This one should be juicy, so bear with me. So here we go. Notes on a Scandal. Once, the Tom and Raquel Ariana love triangle had made headlines around the world. I got a call from one of our producers, Jeremiah, who told me that the VPR cameras were going back up for season 10 to chronicle the fallout from Sandoval. This was not going to be the same as when they picked up the cameras for a couple days to capture my divorce from Shay. Oh no. Now we're going to be filming for 2 full weeks and still have a reunion, which they never done before. I was still on a day rate, so I was thinking, put me in, coach. I ended up making more for the Sandoval episode than every other cast member, and I had hoped this would prove how valuable I was to the group and the show ahead of discussions for season 11. But my only concern at that moment, in that time, was making sure that Ariana felt loved, protected, and supported. At this point, given how things ended with me and Raquel and the narrative she was sharing about the heated exchange in New York City, a friend questioned how far Raquel might take her accusations. Would she escalate beyond our mutual friends and the VPR producers? Though I didn't punch or hit her, I did toss her phone and push her away from me twice. So, being someone who has always been scared of getting in trouble, someone who's instinctively taps the brakes when they see a police car, even when they aren't even speeding, I asked this friend to call Raquel to find out what she was planning to do. So, she told them there was no way she would ever file charges or pursue this further, which I was very relieved to hear. However, this conversation must have occurred before she took her first meeting with a crisis PR agency, when it seemed to me that she decided to try to salvage her reputation amid the brewing scandal and to shift the narrative from that of a femme fatale stealing her best friend's man to a Bambi-eyed victim. It seemed to me that the first part of this reputational rehab was to highlight that Tom recorded an intimate FaceTime with Raquel without her consent, which resulted in the entire cast of the VPR receiving cease and desist letters to their personal email accounts, inspiring Lala's infamous profitable "send it to Daryl" merch line. On an embarrassing note, the lawyer who had sent those correspondence out to the cast, knowing full well that they all had legal representation, it would be appropriate. It wouldn't be appropriate to send the town. Excuse me. It wouldn't be appropriate to send to town directly. Was my long-term entertainment attorney, who I had set Raquel up with the prior year. He had helped her negotiate a sizable pay increase for season 10. Needless to say, I have a new lawyer. After that, Raquel filed a restraining order against me for our altercation in New York. To do so, she first needed to file a police report, which she filed in LA 5 days later, not in NYC, where our exchange occurred. Have a doctor document her alleged injuries so severe that they didn't require medical attention until 4 days later, and attest to the fact that the matter, under penalty of perjury, this girl was willing to lie about me, put my livelihood and reputation in jeopardy, as well as expose herself to serious legal issues for filing a false report just so that the media would go easier on her. I can empathize with someone who falls for the wrong person and creates chaos in their personal life. Sometimes the heart wants what it shouldn't, but I will never understand how she could weaponize the justice system in such an irresponsible way, especially against someone who treated her as a family just to shield herself from the repercussions of her own poor decisions. So imagine my surprise when I was sitting at home alone with Summer, and my publicist called to inform that TMZ was going to run a story that Raquel had filed to obtain a restraining order against me. Apparently, she was claiming that I assaulted her, resulting in a black eye and a permanent scar on her eyebrow. Immediately, I started freaking out and crying. Summer felt my fear and pain and teared up as well. The second I realized how scared she was, I knew I needed to reel it in and keep my shit together for her sake. Still, I was completely shocked and appalled. I felt sick to my stomach, and the mere thought of how someone I allowed into my most innermost circle could be capable of such deep levels of duplicity, not just the affair, but the subsequent lies to cover it up, and my OCD went into full swing. All I could do was agonize about the worst case scenarios. Could I get arrested for an assault I didn't commit? Would I be fired from my job and lose necessary income? My sponsors and brands back out of my podcast? Would I be canceled altogether? My intrusive thoughts were spinning out of control. That same night, Ariana had some friends flying in from New York. They were all heading to Mexico the following day for a college friend's wedding, where she also met her current boyfriend, Daniel Way. So LA was just a stopover. Since I knew them, she asked if she could meet them at my house in the Marina del Rey in order to escape the paparazzi, who at this time were camped outside of Ariana and Tom's place around the clock. I said, of course. We'll go to Venice Beach at sunset. I thought that would be a nice break for Ariana amid all the craziness in her life. Unfortunately, as they were driving to my house, Ariana noticed that the paparazzi were following her, which she immediately let me know. I didn't want the paparazzi to know where I lived or be anywhere near Summer, so I suggested that we meet at a nearby Mexican restaurant instead. Of course, that didn't throw them off our scent. The paparazzis were camped outside the window shooting photos of us inside the restaurant, which had me in a panic. It felt like such an invasion of privacy. As a mom, I felt extra protective of the little marina bubble we were raising our daughter in. I had already given the media so much and just wanted to maintain this place for myself and my family, especially to keep Summer safe. Thankfully, Summer and I were able to slip out through the kitchen and then took the back door into the alley behind the restaurant while everyone else used the front door. I carried Summer the whole way and tried to make it like an adventure for her. I said, "We're just walking a different route home. It'll be fun." I tried to act relaxed, but I was actually jogging for fear that paparazzi would figure out what we had done and chase us back to my house. Finally, I reconnected with Ariana and her friends on a street corner, and we returned to my complex safely, where we hung out for the rest of the night. Still as grateful as I was to be sheltered and safely away from the prying eyes of those cameras, I broke down in tears, and my empathetic daughter was looking at me with such a sad face that my heart was breaking. Yes, I understood that the infidelity had happened to Ariana, not to me. But being stalked by paparazzi when you're with your child is extremely unnerving, especially for a person who's already struggling with anxiety. Not to mention that I was shaken by Raquel's false accusations, so I already felt like I was under attack. I had to hire a lawyer for as a yet to be determined court date. I couldn't believe that it had come to that, and I started having full-blown panic attacks every single day. I never been in trouble with the law for anything, aside for a speeding ticket, so to potentially have assault charges or a restraining order on my record was horrifying. Was Raquel really afraid of me? Did she think I was going to lurk outside of her house or harass her? It was ridiculous, since all I actually wanted was to never see or speak to her again. To make matters worse, Raquel's court filing included my home address, so once the document hit the docket, my safe little bubble burst. The paparazzi started camping outside my house. I was terrified to say the least. With every knock at the door and every stranger I encountered, I wondered if I was about to be served. I never was. It was obvious to me that this case was never about justice. It was about optics and headlines and changing the media narrative. While living through that time was frightening, I'd be damned if that bitch was going to wrongly accuse me of something and get away with it. My court date was set for Wednesday, March 29th, 2023, 6 days following the scheduled season 10 reunion taping on Thursday, March 23rd. Though I wasn't sure I would be able to attend, the temporary restraining order, aka TRO, stipulated that I must stay 100 yards away, and I figured the producers would prioritize Raquel being there to face the music for her 7-month affair with Tom Sandoval. On March 17th, the week prior to the taping, Raquel's attorney reached out to my attorney to see if we might be able to sort out a settlement agreement, which would include Raquel withdrawing her TRO, thus allowing us to both participate on stage together at the reunion. That still should have been welcome news, right? I wanted to attend a reunion and put the whole nightmare behind me, but once my attorney reviewed the settlement agreement that Raquel's attorney had prepared, we had 3 notes. 1, Raquel agreed to file a request to end the TRO and take off calendar the hearing of the permanent restraining order. Unfortunately, there is no mechanism to terminate a civil temporary restraining order, so it would have to lapse on March 29th, 6 days after the reunion taping. Raquel agreed she would not participate in the prosecution of any claims or allegations as set forth in the police report that she filed. This wouldn't be sufficient because Raquel would have to appear pursuant to a subpoena if the district attorney or city attorney filed charges. We would need a declaration from Raquel that I did not punch her and that the punch was reasonable force in response to Raquel grabbing my wrist. We agreed that if Raquel provided such declaration, we would not release it and would use it only if the district or city attorney threatens to file charges. They requested that both of us issue a mutually agreed upon joint statement. On this one, I just had no interest in signing my name to a shared statement with her. Raquel's attorney did not respond to these comments. Instead, they went to the press. On March 29th, etonline.com reported that prior to the reunion and behind the scenes, Levis and Shay's team tried to work out an agreement so the two could film the reunion together, but it fell apart. The outlet further quoted an unnamed source, which in situations like this is often a publicist who wants their comments to read more like an insider tea than a rep statement, saying, Raquel's team, with production's knowledge, attempted to find a mutual acceptable resolution with Scheana to help get the TRO dropped prior to filming so that they could both attend the reunion together. Raquel's team proposed that they would both agree that the agreement escalated and got physical, but that both women wished to move forward from it and agreed there was no fault, would stop talking about it at the reunion, and would stop making any disparaging remarks related to the incident after the reunion. Had they come to a reasonable agreement, Raquel was prepared to appear in court Tuesday. Note, the hearing date was actually on a Wednesday, to drop the TRO. Unfortunately, Scheana rebuked the offer, which kept the burden on production to find a solution for them to film separately. Scheana's team wanted Raquel to say the punch never happened, and Raquel's refused. This was deeply frustrating and a misrepresentation of the events that had occurred, since my team never rebuked her offer, but instead raised the legitimate concerns and was met with the silence, one of which that was the settlement would unburden production. And if I were guilty of what Raquel had alleged in her police report and court filings, I would not have been in a position to turn down a settlement offer. Up until the day before the reunion, I still wasn't sure if I would be able to attend. I certainly wasn't going to risk the repercussions of violating the terms of the TRO, even if that meant missing out on a sizable paycheck. Thankfully, production ended up finding a solution, ensuring that Raquel and I would never be within 100 yards of each other. A trailer set up offsite, equipped with a live feed and several cameras to capture every reaction. I started out on stage with the rest of the cast and Andy Cohen, while Raquel was in the trailer. Then in the afternoon, when it was time to bring Raquel to the stage, the carefully orchestrated swap began. Raquel and I were each placed in cars at the same time and sent in different directions. It felt like I had driven 7 miles away from the studio. However, when I exited the car to enter the trailer, I realized that I ended up in a parking lot across the street from the studio where the reunion was being filmed. While on stage during the first part of the reunion with Raquel watching from the trailer, Andy Cohen handed me a piece of paper which he stated was a court filing showing that Raquel was dropping the restraining order against me. This should have made me happy, but I knew something was amiss. It couldn't be that easy. I sent my lawyer a screenshot of the document, and we debriefed once I was settled in the trailer. I don't believe this footage has seen the light of day, but after he explained to me that the document had no legal significance and was essentially worthless, I ripped it up right there on camera. Since no one can terminate a civil temporary restraining order prior to the court hearing, and the court hadn't processed the document, it was obvious that this was a stunt purely for the TV cameras, not an action that had any merit in the courtroom. Why would she do this if it didn't mean anything? Well, as mentioned, the reunion was taped the week prior to our court date. My team and I were very confident that the facts were on our side, and our sense was that Raquel's team concurred with our assessment. Even though they were saying the opposite to the news media, I can only speculate, but I imagine that they were worried that when the case would be dismissed, the media coverage would lean more favorably to me, less so for Raquel. To prevent that from happening and to maintain control of the media narrative, Raquel came out with a statement prior to the court date where she essentially said that she was taking the high road and dropping the TRO before the facts could be heard in court. Ironically, when I showed up with my attorney to my scheduled court hearing to hopefully put this nightmare behind me, and once and for all, Raquel and her team stated that I was the one being performative. Excuse me, when was I performing? When the stress of this case whittled me below 110 pounds, a weight I hadn't seen on a scale since I battled anorexia during my early 20s, when my empathetic daughter mimicked my cries, when I sat outside a nail salon in the valley waiting for paparazzi to come find me so I could candidly deliver prepared statements. Oh, that's right. There's nothing performative about clearing your name from false allegations, especially when I had to contend with the court of public opinion. I attended the hearing because the judge could have decided to enforce a permanent restraining order against me. Sure, Raquel stated that she wasn't going to show up to court, so I didn't need to either. But could I trust her? Would you trust her? I need to put this behind me once and for all. Believe me, I would have much rather been home in bed with my kid that rare rainy morning in LA, then driving to the Van Nuys courthouse. Raquel certainly got the luxury of staying dry and getting her beauty rest that day from the comfort of Tom Sandoval and Ariana Maddox's shared home while Ariana was out of town for work. My relationship with Raquel was not the only one rocked by the scandal. During this ordeal, and sometime earlier in the month, Sandoval, to whom I was not speaking at all, texted me to say he had some information for me and asked if I could call him later. Even though I was furious with him, I was curious to hear him out, so I agreed. Once I was on the line with Tom, I made sure Brock was in the earshot as a witness. Fool me once. Tom said, I want you to know that Raquel's family has her in a Britney Spears sort of situation where she's not allowed to have her phone. She stuck a few calls to me from the bathroom, but aside from that, they're not letting her speak to me. As far as I know, her parents have hired a private investigator to track down the footage from the street that night. So, Scheana, if you punched her, you can't deny it. You can deny it all you want, but if they access the video and it shows otherwise, it's going to be very bad for you. Honestly, I wanted there to be video footage to prove that I never punched Raquel, but either way, they never uncovered the footage, or they did, and it comforted my narrative. Let me rephrase it. Sorry about that, guys. Honestly, I wanted there to be video footage to prove that I never punched Raquel, but either they never uncovered the footage or they did, and it confirmed my narratives of the events, as it never materialized. Could that be the real reason Raquel decided to dip out on attending the court hearing? I like to think in that moment Tom was acting as a good friend that he'd been out... I like to think in that moment Tom was acting as the good friend that he'd been to me for 14 years, giving me the heads up because he was looking out for my well-being. However, since he was also this person who had elicited an affair with his girlfriend's close friend, the person now dragging my name through the mud for several months, I realized it could have been a threat rather than a heads up. I wasn't sure I could trust him anymore, which was sad to come to terms with. I told Tom that I already retained a lawyer and asked if I could put him in touch to get more details on the private investigator situation. While I knew I was innocent, I still wanted to stay on top of it, and Tom said yes. There was a part of me that struggled with cutting Tom out of my life. He had been a solid friend to me for so long, and I wasn't one to just discard somebody because they made mistakes. I made numerous mistakes myself. Naturally, my energy went to Ariana in this situation. She was the one who needed it, but did that mean I had to cut Tom out forever? There have been a lot of incestuous infidelity within this fan group over the years, and we've always been able to find our way through. With time, would we be able to navigate this as well? In the moment, a line was drawn in the sand, and my loyalty was to Ariana. Unfortunately, siding with Ariana didn't ultimately preserve our friendship. In the months leading into season 11, Ariana's star rose as the world rallied around her post-scandal, and a little distance emerged in our friendship. She's not great at multitasking, and she was being pulled in a million different directions. Still, throughout this time, I was living in my own personal hell, and I desperately wanted my best friend, my ride or die, throughout 10 seasons of BPR Plus, the 2 years prior serving up big pinkies at Villa Blanca together, to notice and ask what was wrong. She never did, and she still doesn't know that my world came to a screeching halt shortly after hers did, for more reasons than Raquel's restraining order. No matter how much distance has emerged, the love is always there. I will always continue to support Ariana in everything she does, and will always be cheering for her. She's an enormously talented person, and I'm so proud of her. When I saw her play Roxy Hart in Chicago on Broadway, I cried tears of joy. She was amazing. After seeing her at her lowest, I'm thrilled that she was able to turn such a dark period in her life into so much light and success. Once we started filming season 11, Lisa Vanderpump sat Lala and me down on camera to relay her concern for Tom's mental state, saying that he revealed he was struggling with suicidal thoughts. When I heard that, I knew I would never forgive myself if something happened to him. Regardless of what he had done, his crimes did not merit the death penalty. Does that mean I owe him my friendship? No. But I could show him some grace. The grace I wish I had shown Colin all those years ago. Had I known that extending Tom grace at the time would ultimately strain my relationship with Ariana. I don't know what I would have done differently. Sure, there's a chance Tom might have been playing us all with his mental health struggles, but I always take such claims seriously. Regardless, my friendship with Tom never recovered from Sandoval. If this wasn't cemented already, it was in July 2024 when I saw that the news that he was suing Ariana for invasion of privacy after she had discovered the FaceTime recording Raquel on his own. I had hoped that Tom would grow from his mistakes and become a better man. I like to think that everyone has the potential to change for the better. However, that move showed he wasn't interested in bettering himself, just his self-interest. I simply couldn't get behind him suing Ariana and forcing any more trauma on her. Honestly, he knew he could go low, but this was a new death for him. Tom did revoke his motion a couple days later following the intense public backlash, though, of course, he took no accountability and blamed it on his lawyer. It's always someone else's fault. I actually saw Tom and his new girlfriend recently at the Vanderpump Dog Foundation Gala, and we said a quick hello. And I can be cordial. There doesn't need to be more drama with Tom. On that same evening, I realized that my relationship with Lisa Vanderpump had diminished too. Earlier in the year, back in January 24, at the Creative Art Emmy Awards, held at the Microsoft Theater in downtown LA, Lisa completely snubbed me in the lobby while everyone was congregated. When I saw her, I said, our dresses really complement each other's because we both had black feather detailing, and I suggested we get a photo together. Lisa started to get in position, then had a moment of realization and said, actually, no. Why don't you ask Kyle Richards for another photo? I saw you posted one with her the other day. The photo in question was from Kathy Hilton's Christmas party the previous month. I was totally caught off guard, mainly because after 10 seasons of not being nominated, we finally were. And I was so proud of what we had accomplished. It's a shame to let something so petty cloud such a special moment. I replied, wait, are you being serious? You're not going to take a selfie with me? She said no, and then walked away. Though a month later, at the season 11 premiere event for VPR, Lisa had no problem crashing my photo with the girls from the cast. I said to her, oh, now you want to take a photo with me. To which she responded, where's your best friend Kyle Richards? I joked. Oh, I'm meeting up with her after this. Lisa fired back. Oh, of course you are. Before turning her attention to photographers and striking a pose. Fast forward to that night at the Vanderpump Dog Foundation Gala, which Pandora had pleaded with me to attend. Lisa was downright cold. She posed for snapshots with Stassi, but even when we were standing next to each other on the carpet, she wouldn't be in a photo with me. The brief communication we had involved her berating me for why Lala hadn't attended, to which I responded, well, I'm here. She snarled back, as she should be. All those years that I've been her good little soldier. Apparently, one photo with her nemesis was all it took to unravel me into an enemy. The upheaval to my inner circle during this period in my life shook me to my core. Unfortunately, the worst was yet to come. All right. So, I read the first part last week, and this one tied in a lot of like loose ends about the restraining order and kind of stuff she has talked about on her podcast. But that little bit of that last part where she was saying that there's a flub up, and Tom's mentioned on this podcast, Everybody Loves Tom, that there was a mix up in the situation with one of his old lawyers or publicists about that whole suing Ariana for false evasion of privacy or whatever. I think what's interesting in there's 3 chapters that I wanted to read from this book that I wanted to read out loud. I think it's very important to kind of tie up the bow with this Sandoval project that I've been working on. Is that we've hit, like, I think all of us content creators about VPR or Bravo or etc. have like gone our way and talked about this topic to death ad nauseum about who's in the right, who's in the wrong, etc., right? I don't need to rehash stuff that you already don't know, right? But I think it begs the question here is that, you know, Scheana wanted to give Tom grace and we saw what happened on season 11, but I think there's something off about their dynamic that I still don't get, because Scheana revealed in this next chapter I'm going to read about Brock's affair that happened correspondingly around the same time that Sandoval happened. So, I mean, even after everything that happened, you forgave Brock, right? He cheated on you. You took all your anger out on Brock, out on Tom on season 11. We had this lawsuit that wasn't a lawsuit, but that was the final straw for you. That's the reason you wanted to cut Tom out of your life. I find that very strange, especially when you have your husband and father of your child go after Tom and accuse them of having Raquel's PR team claim that they had an affair with each other, which that was never the case. Like, something about that just doesn't sit right with me. The fact that Brock and Scheana used Tom as a scapegoat, let alone all the shit that he already did to himself prior to season 11, it just doesn't sit right with me. So that one whole situation of, I just decided to cut Tom out of my life because of the lawsuit to Ariana, which wasn't a lawsuit. You could pin it on, he doesn't take accountability and blah, 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 blah. But where's the accountability at the season 11 reunion for you guys using Tom as a scapegoat for hiding the fact that Brock had an affair right around the same time? But Brock wants to play the voice of reason for everybody, right? It just doesn't sit right with me, this whole situation. It just doesn't. So I'm going to read this final chapter from Scheana's My Good Side book next week. We'll tie up all these loose ends for the Sandoval story, but it's interesting reading this stuff back. It really is. But we come back, we'll get to our main event segment here for the podcast this week and talk about the Valley here. We'll get into episode 3 of the Valley, season 3, the Santa Clarita Trail, all right here on episode 5 of the SUR Files. We'll be right back. All right, guys, time for our Valley Roundup here on the SUR Files. Time to talk about episode 3 of the Valley, aka the Santa Clarita Trail, or as I like to call it, the Santa Boob Trail. We had a lot of stuff go down on this episode with mommy makeovers, breastfeeding while you're going out to clubs, celebrating the late 90s and early 2000s. And Lala getting in her boob action and just everything in between. This is a very sensuous episode, and this was also a very petty episode. I think a lot of the charm and flair and the entertainment that I can kind of get this from a wrestling point of view is kind of the mellow drama, the pettiness that comes from these things where you look at an issue that happens on a reality TV show and you just say it out loud, and you look at it on paper, it's like, is this really a hill to die on? I thought this episode is the perfect, example of that. Love Jasmine. I think she's a great addition to the show. Her and Zach are great comedy foe with each other. I've never had an issue with Jasmine on the show. This is not a knock towards her. Like I said, I enjoy her on the show. I just found it interesting how triggered she was this episode. I think with her, I won't say what Lala said where she's a flip-flopper and she talks shit behind people's back just for the hell of it and tries to be nice. I think Jasmine is a nice person. I even heard her have an interview on Schwartz's podcast a while back when I was still in Chicago, and she was talking about her story and her upbringing. She used to be a cheerleader for the Dallas Cowboys, which I thought was really cool. And I fucks with Jasmine. Jasmine's really cool. I just thought with this episode was just with her representation, it just came off where miscommunication was the big thing. And it's like, are you listening when you're having an argument or a situation with somebody and you're having conflict? when you're in the middle of it, are you listening to understand, or are you just listening to respond? Because there's a lot of selective hearing, and we have all been through it in our lives where we've had friends or partners or family members, whatever the situation is, where the gossip trail goes. You hear one thing from one person, and that person tells another story when it gets confronted, and you don't know what to do. And so she walks away, right? They're at the Danny and Nia housewarming party at Santa Clarita. This was kind of like the tense main event part of this episode. And, you know, it was building up throughout the entire episode, because really a lot of the crux of what happened with this was that Jasmine, in her way, opened up that she felt kind of uneasy as to why Lala is now part of the cast, is why she's now hanging out at these settings with this group when she hasn't been there for the last couple of seasons. Like, she doesn't understand Lala's point of view, and not to say that Jasmine and Lala were ever enemies with each other, but they were on its side, and they admitted it, and they talked about it in the after show too. But I thought with the stuff with Jasmine and Michelle kind of threw me off cue, because why did that conversation have to escalate to the point that it did at the Y2K night? Maybe Michelle's tone threw Jasmine off. Jasmine even admits to herself that she's very emotional. She's very high strung, and I get that. That's, again, this is not a knock or anything towards Jasmine's character, but if you're looking for reasons to be triggered and take things out of context without actually listening to somebody, that's not gonna help you with any manners. Now, what also is not gonna help manners is having somebody come into the group who is already causing red flags amongst other members of the cast, and now is suddenly a boyfriend of Brittany Cartwright, and this is a whole ring-a-ding with Brandon. We finally got more of him and got to see him actually talk instead of seeing him on FaceTime, and I keep mentioning as I do these episodes and these reviews of the Valley, especially on TikTok, that like Brittany is trying to do everything that she can to rile up Jax. And look, I know some people don't like Jax Taylor. I'm a fan of his, so I kind of feel bad for him in a way where she's just like rubbing it in his face at the fact that he's not there. And I know that he caused a lot of damage and a lot of strife amongst the cast for season 2. I get that. Jax is not without flaws. I'm also glad to hear that he's doing very well for himself and that he's back in a sober place. So I'm really happy to hear that. So I want to give a shout out to Jax Taylor. I doubt that he's even listening to this, but I can give a shout out to you, good sir, because you're taking a lot of hits from Brittany on this season so far, and I don't know how you're doing it. It'd be testing my patience for sure. But going back to the Brittany of it all with Brandon, a lot of this situation came up because this conversation happened in Lala's car as they were driving out to Santa Clarita. Now, I have to say, one of the parts of the episode on Wednesday that really cracked me up was the cast in general just describing what it's like to drive out to Santa Clarita and Swartz about it too. And he's like, all right, I got a neck pillow and all this extra shit. And it's like they treat a 40-minute drive in LA, I guess, compared to a 2-hour flight or an hour and a half flight. Like, I don't know what it'd be like because I never lived in California. I've only been there once. I want to live in California sooner or later. That's one of the places I want to go, but I'm here to give Florida a chance. But I've talked about it with my sister. I would like to be in California. I think that'd be a great place for me. But when I look at that scene in general where everybody's complaining and talking about the drive out to Santa Clarita, that's pretty fun. So anyway, they're in this car, right? And they're going up to Danny and Nia's house. And this is where the whole conversation with Jasmine came in. So Brandon has every opportunity, right, to show Zach. Zach is a protected best friend of Brittany, and he has his ears up and he's looking out for Brittany. And admittedly, I can admit, as someone who's watched Brittany over the years on Vanderpump Rules and also on the Valley, that she has a bad track record of ignoring red flags. And Also, again, I'm not going to come on here and knock Brittany's character because as somebody who listens to her podcast every single week, I am a big advocate of Brittany Cartwright. I'm happy that she's getting her sparkle back. And also, I thought she did a great job of Watch What Happens Live last night. So, again, I can admit these things and say what I observe on these shows. But again, I'm not going to attack these people from a personal standpoint. It's not that deep for me. I don't want to make these issues, but if I notice something, it's going to be pointed out. I can't come on here and be dishonest with you. I do think at times Brittany does put a blind eye to certain things, red flags in partners, red flags with friendships. Yeah. So Brandon exposed himself on this episode, and it's just not a good look. So I give my thoughts of it, but I think it'd be better for hear from the cast itself. So this is from the Valley After Show. After Show podcast, and they give you more context of what really happened with Brittany and Brandon and the sack of it all and the red flag. So let's play this. Here we go.
Or married, or
I know you're colorblind when it comes to flags, okay? I'm just saying it.
What flags does he have? And I knew Zach would like Brandon, like as a person. You know, he's very easy to talk to. He's very sociable.
Brittany's defense was that, oh, don't worry, I'm not going to go too fast. We're not going to be boyfriend and girlfriend. Cut to 4 days later, they're boyfriend and girlfriend.
I did ask her out last night. So she is my girlfriend now.
I've known Brittany forever.
Slow down.
And every time I've ever known Brittany, she's had a boyfriend and then gone right into the next boyfriend and then right into the next boyfriend. Even if the boyfriend was not good, and she'll stay with them because she is a good person and wants to make it work.
You have like a history of kind of rushing into things.
I mean, kind of, but not really at the same time. Like, I had a serious boyfriend in high school that I went into college with. We broke up. I dated another guy until I turned 21. We broke up. I was single for a couple years, dated another guy. We broke up, and then I dated Jax. So, like, that's not like...
I don't think that's crazy.
That crazy.
I didn't like the way I was hearing all of these things, and she wasn't telling me them. So,
What things?
like,
Baby
red
mama-
flags from
baby
behind the
mama
scenes.
stuff.
The baby mama stuff. There was so many things. Also, we went to a concert together, just us three, and the way he acted and
Tell
how
me about that.
entitled he was. We had tickets to...
In a suite, by the way.
in a suite. We were at this concert, and we only had the tickets to the suite itself, not the tickets to the concert, because they weren't coming through. And so when we were scanning, it was like, no, you don't have tickets. But we just hadn't done. So I had to call the manager. It was just very convoluted. And he's freaking out, having this meltdown, being really mean about everything. When this is a free concert, we're sitting in this free booth. And I was like, this ain't it.
I mean, drama was happening as soon as people found out that we were dating.
It was all over the internet, which is obnoxious for Brittany. The way that they were phrasing things, like, she's dating a married man. And I'm like, you guys, she's also technically married. They're both fully separated, moving on from their exes. Like, let's calm down.
There was a lot of red flags. Again, I keep going back to the fact that I knew him for so long. And, like, he was a really good friend to me back in the day. And I felt like I actually know this person. It was definitely baggage for sure. But I just saw it as someone that she knows and is comfortable with, who's also going through what she's going through at the same time. I really just felt like it was like the universe putting this ball in her court.
Pop your puss, but don't make it a relationship.
Right.
That's what's pissing me off. I was like, but it was so hard because I know she was in a space that, like, she just wanted to feel loved. And I get it, because, like, going through all that with Jax, I can't even imagine what it feels like. In her mind, she's like, I just want to feel loved. And Brandon, yes.
He was doing that.
So
the
I think
problem
that
was she was in a very vulnerable place, and she was very susceptible to any type of love or any type of
And she knew
anything.
him from the past. It was like all these layers.
What I don't like is that everybody kept coming to me and being like, will you just let her be happy? And all I see is, yes, she's happy right now, but this is a Band-Aid. And when you pull it off, that's actually like a deep wound that needs stitches.
I know.
So, like, unfortunately, I saw what was probably going to come, but I stepped back and I downgraded those flags from red to yellow.
I agree with Zach's perspective. I don't agree with Zach's delivery. The last thing Brittany needs is someone else telling her what to do, because she is trying to leave someone who's still trying to tell her what to do. So we can give her our POV. We can say, like, I'm kind of seeing these flags, or like, I'm nervous about this for you, but Brittany's going to do what Brittany wants to do, and she needs to experience that on her own.
All right, close there with Kristen's thoughts. So, I mean, we've already talked about some deep. I wouldn't say this is like a deep issue. Like, is this something that's gonna brew where it's more tension between Brittany and Zach as the season goes on, where he's like sticking his nose in the relationships and not letting her have fun? Maybe that could be something that could be put in the equation. And then there's the other factor where Brittany is the one that like tries to bring the group together, and she's like the people pleaser, right? But in that manner, we still also have it on the side where, you know, Brittany's allegiances are going to be tied up with this whole drama with Kristen and Janet, and Janet and Nia, and with the addition with Lala, will Lala persuade Brittany to be on their side? And like, you know, that's stuff to look out for. But I'll tell you what, there's a couple things on this episode that stood out to me. The conversation with the two conversations that Luke had, both with Jason and then also Danny at the party, about where their friendship lies, coming off that tense reunion where Jason was calling Danny a douche and a clown. I understand both sides. I really do. And I like Jason. I'm also, Danny cracks me up. I know that Danny's not everybody's cup of tea, but he cracks me up. He is funny to a certain extent. Maybe there'll be a time where he annoys the shit out of me, but I don't mind Danny Book. I really don't. and I thought the conversation that Danny, Jesse, and Luke had on the after show was also pretty funny, about him being in character sometimes. I thought that was funny. So, look, obviously, what happened with Janet and Danny during last season, I thought for myself was unacceptable. You don't defame a man's character and try to ruin his reputation as a father over something that he already forgiven, and he already apologized and took atonement for, and everything in between. And obviously he took accountability and felt shit about what happened and the mistakes that he made. He owned up to it. And I felt in a lot of ways, in a lot of reasons that a lot of the fans have it out for Jan, is that she kept jamming that, like, you wouldn't let the conversation go. For apologies were offered. Not to say that, you know, obviously Jasmine and Melissa have the right to feel how they feel about whether they need more of an apology. We don't need to rehash everything. We know what happened during season 2. But I kind of relay with what Janet was doing towards Nia in the way of how Katie was trading Tom Sandoval in season 11. And when the conversation came up about Tom's mental health, Katie couldn't give two shits. I get it. Katie and Tom, like two horns. Both couldn't stand each other. Both got in the way in both of their relationships. I know as much as Katie wants to blame Sandoval for her divorce, she also played a big part in trying to convince Kristen to break up with Tom multiple times. And obviously, Tom and Kristen in the early stages of the show were a very, very toxic couple. And obviously, they were not good for each other. I know all the facts. But facts also don't deny what I see on my television screen. Katie also has interfered in Tom's relationship, and hell, even I'll say this, and I don't know whether this is true or not, but just from how I see how things have played out over the years, I wouldn't have been surprised if Katie was trying to convince Ariana to break up with Tom before fucking Sandoval happened. I would not have been surprised at that one iota. I don't know if that's true. Obviously, it doesn't matter anymore because that situation is 3 years ago, and obviously Ariana's in a much better place for now, and we're all happy for her, and she has her boyfriend, and Tom has a new girlfriend. So it doesn't matter. I don't need to rehash old wounds, but do you see the comparisons? Like, we saw what happened with Sandoval, and we saw what happened with Danny and Jasmine. Two shitty situations that shouldn't have happened. At what point do we allow Grace to let Grace be? Why do we have to keep bringing it up when the situation was solved? That's what I don't get personally. That's what I personally do not get. But Danny brought up a great point to Luke. Had Jason talked to Luke that way at the reunion and treated him the same way that Jason treated Danny during last season, Danny wouldn't have been his friend. So Luke is trying to play a peacemaker and bring them together for a boys' night out. And they showed a little teaser of it for episode 4 next week. And it's a preview of what's going to happen for this boys' nights out. And Danny's unsure, but obviously we saw in the trailer that this conversation is going to happen next week. So I'm curious to see how this one's going to play out. I really am. I just really like this episode because I felt in a way like, yes, I'll admit a little bit. There's been too much of emphasis of these parties and get-togethers, like kid parties and stuff like that. It's been a little bit much for the first couple episodes, but I think we're finally gonna get into the layers of what the real like heat and drama that's gonna emanate from this season in the next couple episodes. I really feel that, especially the Michelle and Lacey shit, whatever stuff Lala gets dragged into. I'm not gonna come and play like the jaded VPR fan. Oh, Lauren from Utah is going to stir up the pot with everybody. I don't want to believe that. I'm going to take it at face value because I am biased. I am a big fan of Lala. She's a Virgo, which makes her even more attractive. And I'm a big fan of her podcast. So I'm glad to see Lala on my TV screen. Sue me. But I'm just curious to see how the rest of this plays out. I love seeing Schwartz on my TV, but he's getting a raw deal right now. Like, I don't know what his angle is going to be. I know I guess him and Lala and Michelle are going to form a singles pact. How that plays out, we'll see. But, like, you can tell that Schwartz is getting, like, the short end of the stick of the season so far. Like, we're not going to get much from Schwartz at all of substance. So that's that. But all in all, I really like this episode. Episode 3, the Santa Clarita Trail. Obviously, we had the whole Y2K night that started the episode, which I thought was pretty cool, where they all got together and celebrated like it was 90s stuff. I thought the outfits looked cool and everything, so that was cool. One thing that I'm not mad, but I thought it was unfortunate that they didn't mention, because this is happening in real time, right? Like, I remember this was like during just before fall, and I was watching Victoria Robinson's Instagram Live. So Victoria Robinson, for those who don't know, is Tom Sandoval's girlfriend. She had an IG Live. I was bored. It was like a Thursday night or whatever. Like, I had nothing to do, so I put it on, and her and Tom were at Tom with New York, Tiffany Pollard, and Tyson from Survivor and House of Villains, basically. So they're all hanging out with each other. And this Instagram video was going on for a little while, and then they decided to go to a different bar in West Hollywood. I forgot what it was, but lo and behold, the stream just stops. And what I found out later that week was Michelle and Brittany. Michelle's a guest on Brittany's podcast. Let me see if I can find that really quick. Just give me a second. Michelle. I gotta find this really quick because basically the crux of this was Michelle was at Brittany, was a guest on Brittany's podcast, and she mentioned that Michelle mentioned that she ran into Tom Sandoval and Victoria at the Y2K night after they went away, and Michelle mentioned that Michelle mentioned that she was super drunk. So just give me a second. I gotta find this because I had her here. Just give me 1 second. Let me look through Spotify. Maybe it's on there. The thing with because when I listen to Brittany's podcast, I just go to the Podcast One channel on YouTube, but this one was a little different, so I gotta scroll back here. I'm gonna play the audio because one of the things I did on my old podcast was play audio for context, so I don't want to be mixing shit up. So we're gonna find this very soon here. But this was around September-ish, before October. I know that's a fact. Yes, so here we go. September 19th. Here we go. Let's see where we can find it here. Yeah, wait for it. All right. Okay, let's go to see here.
Years since I've been separated.
Accidentally took the boost. I have a client that
I'm looking at a bunch of
when you were debating what phone they want.
That's nice.
Yeah, I've never actually. I'm trying to think.
Yeah,
you were listening to. So I was living in San Diego, and you were rapping. So
you would remember
bar in West Hollywood.
You might not have met her because there were so many people.
All right, here we go. I got it right here. This is from the September 19th episode. This is When Reality Hits with Brittany. Here's Michelle bringing it up here.
They popped in there.
They were really nice. And he looked at me and he's like, is that how you...
All right. Oh, hold on. I got to go back. Fast forward. Here we go.
Little home for yourself and cruise.
And because I didn't know what was going to happen, if I was going to get the house, if I was going to have to sell the house, all those things. So Michelle showed me 2 different houses. And it's crazy how the prices have changed.
Oh, you bought at such a great time before COVID.
Yeah, I bought in 2019. If everybody's that's such a good time.
Yes, great interest rates.
Yeah.
And the market has gone up, and we live in LA, so the market is going to continue, even if it goes up and down. It goes up naturally. It will always
just keep going up.
Keep going up.
I mean, my whole street, as you've seen, is being rebuilt, which is good for me.
Oh, yeah. And so many families that lived in Beverly Hills, Hollywood Hills, West Hollywood, they want more space. So everybody is really moving to the Valley.
Woohoo! Go Valley! Let's do it! I'm not selling my house, by the way. I get asked that question all the time. Yeah. And I say it all the time. I'm not selling it.
Honestly, if I were you, I would keep it forever. If you ever buy another house, just rent it out. That's a great investment property.
Yeah, I love it. And Cruz loves his pool, and I have a backyard, so... that's just amazing. Okay. Oh, another weird thing that happened. This is so random.
Here we go.
But as I was in my Uber, I looked over and I was like, is that Tom Sandoval? I could have sworn it was Tom Sandoval riding a bike without his shirt on.
Oh, by the way, I just ran into him.
What?
When I went out with Zach after the Y2K party.
Oh.
He took me to the gay bars, which I've never really been. Stayed
Did you go to the Abbey?
No, but we went to all of the ones around.
Yeah, I love it.
And then randomly ran into Tom Sandoval and his girlfriend.
How are they?
She was so nice.
Yeah, she's always nice.
Yeah. I've never actually, I'm trying to think. I don't think I've met her. And
you were at Melissa's birthday party, and they
oh, I didn't meet her.
Yeah, you might not have met her because there were so many people around, but they popped in there.
They were really nice, and he looked at me and he's like, is that how you normally dress? And I'm like, no, it was a theme party I went to.
Was it after the Western party that we had?
No, it was after the Y2K, I was wearing butterfly clips and I looked like a little girl.
Oh my God,
I was like, no, I don't normally dress like this.
Yeah, she straight up asked you normally dress like that.
I did look ridiculous. It's 1 a.m. out at a bar in West Hollywood.
Oh my goodness, that's hilarious.
All right, there you go. I knew it wasn't crazy, but I was wonder why that wasn't brought up in the after shows, God forbid if we don't have something on fucking Bravo with Kristen or Brittany or Lala where they're not talking shit about Tom Sandoval. You figure this would be the perfect episode to bring it up. But anyways, there was a chance that we could have saw Tom Sandoval on the Valley this week, which would have popped me huge, and him making a cameo. That would have been awesome, but Anyways, on that note, also I heard that Tom and Ariana's house is in escrow, like it's about to be sold soon. So congratulations to them on that. Anyways, on that note, we're going to put a ribbon on this week's edition of the SUR Files. Please do us a favor and hit that like button and smash the subscribe button. If you enjoyed what you listened to, make sure to hit that bell notification on top. That way you don't miss when new videos are uploaded to our channel. Also, the best way to support this podcast is also hitting us up on TikTok and our growing TikTok community at SUR Files, SUR Files. Very easy to find. Share a lot of old clips, and we put the emphasis on the files. So every old scene, every old interview, new interviews, new scenes from the Valley and Vanderpump Rules will be shared on that page, and also some rare independent commentary from myself. I do quick weekly reviews of the Valley on TikTok as well as along with this podcast. But make sure to check us out on TikTok at the SUR Files. And lastly, certainly not least, make sure to check out our podcast anywhere you get your podcast from. In our home of the SUR Files is Odyssey. Remember, folks, be the authentic product that is yourself. Remember, nobody dictates the pace of your life for yourself and the man upstairs. I'm Joshie. This has been episode 5 of the SUR Files. I'll be here next week. We'll talk to y'all next week. Love y'all. Hit us up in the comment section down below, by the way. I'd love to hear you guys. Let me know what you guys are enjoying so far or not enjoying so far from the Valley. Let me know what you guys thought about this week's episode as well. So, all right, guys, have a great weekend. I'll talk to you next week. Peace.